Well. It's been a long time coming, I guess. Not really. 4 years. Since, for me to do I've been looking over Eminem's later career albums, i.e. the bad ones, and I guess it was going to come to a point where he was going to release a new album, I suppose, and here we are. I'm pretty late with it, almost 2 months later. Oh, I really wanted to get all my thoughts together about this whole album. Well, I'll tell you what, I wanted to spend that time listening to the album. So the new release is out, The Death of Slim Shady, Coup de Grace, and I'll just come right out and say it, that I like the album, and it is a good album. It really sounds like M somewhat back on his game. Like, I'm not saying it's right up there with the earlier classics, but it's certainly better than Revival and Music to Be Murdered By. And I am liking it more than Revival, Kamikaze, because I did give that album, big ups, somewhat. I don't know, I think it's an interesting album, especially beat-wise and everything. Maybe lyrically it's not as interesting, but it was an interesting turn for M because it's not a bloody hour-long plus album, and that was the delight with it. But as for this album, what makes it so good? Because I had not like excitement or even apprehension. It's just another thing in life, Oh, the Eminem album's coming out. Well, I will listen to it. There we go. And then I'll talk about it on my stupid podcast. And here we are. But what makes this so much better than his other albums of late? Certainly, I think beat-wise, yes, it's a bit better. But lyrically, it's certainly better. And in terms of existentially, it is better. I think it's because maybe he seems to be rapping really about the culture. He's rapping about his place in the culture as well. But at least he's not being all he's looking outward rather than inward. He's not looking inward in like such a self-centered and self-cannibalistic way where he just goes on about himself and just has this whole... He was getting into like a bad spiral after Revival. I'm the one rhyming. Where he would make a shitty album and his fans would give him shit, and then he would just like rap against those critics and be like, nah, it wasn't shit, it was great, and now here's another one for you. And I guess this was like brought up on the Paul skit on Kamikaze, but he just kept doing it. He did it on Music to Be Murdered By as well, and it just got so inane. And you just go through like 3 albums of this kind of thing, and it just gets really tiresome. And I was listening to this album to begin with. I was very worried it was going to continue on with that, because the opening track, Renaissance, at least starts off promising with some like amusing lines about his life and his reputation in the music industry. And there's some good lines here and there, like as soon as I stopped giving a fuck, I started to sell a bit. Ha ha ha. That's nice and clever wordplay. But then he starts going on about like, all these haters. He compares his own haters to the haters of Kendrick and Ye, and brings up classic albums, and he's like, oh, you haters, you're never happy. And that's it. So it's kind of a dead-on opening track. It was scary to see. But it wasn't exactly and this track, Renaissance, is like the exact same thing he did with Music to Be Murdered By. With that opening track, Premonition, immediately he's just on the defensive so fucking hard. It's just such a headache to listen to. But thankfully, the rest of the album isn't that way. The rest of the album lyrically is just M doing what he really should be doing, and just putting out some amusing lines, just being funny, just throwing down some like amusing wordplay, and just being disgusting at times, showing his capabilities as a rapper, but not in a way where it seems like he's really showing off. Like, how like moments like on fucking Rap God and Godzilla, where he's like, spitting it so fast, it's like, whoa, oh my god, Eminem, he's so quick, look at the way he says these words, and it's like, who cares about the words and whatever. There's a couple of moments on this album where he does that. He doesn't get quite as fast with the rapping, but those rap moments are better because he's just... It's good to hear that he's leaning into the horrorcore. It's definitely what he's doing, especially with the first number of tracks on this album, like Antichrist and Lucifer and Evil. Obviously, they're all going to be about like how, he's just a sick, twisted, demented man. Ugh. Well, at least he's not being too cringe about it at all. No, in fact, he's just, in a way, taking it lightly. I mean, this is the sort of thing that, Music to Be Murdered By should have been, because you look at the front of that, the cover of that album, you think it's going to be horrorcore, but oh no, it's just Eminem going on about like he's a lyrical killer, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh god, I'm gonna kill you with my lyrical skills. Whoa, I'm gonna kill you in a rap game. But on this album, he's instead just talking about actually killing you, I suppose. And with this whole death of, like with the title and the concept of it all, it's somewhat to be appreciated. I guess I shouldn't go into it too much because it just seems like it's hard to gauge and it's not like there entirely. And there's somewhat a concept, but can you really call this a concept album with like the whole, like you got these skits and like, a couple of moments here and there, and then a whole song with like Slim facing off against M, where I guess he's like taking him hostage and making him back to the way they used to be when they were really offensive, which doesn't really make sense because M keeps going about, oh no, you made me come across as so offensive and now I'm cancelled. And then, but it just seems like M himself is just being offensive anyway throughout his own lyrics on the album. Or is it Slim rapping? I don't know. I can only tell when it gets to Guilty Conscience 2, where they go between the two, but I don't know if it's Slim on that track, if Slim is appearing on other tracks and taking over. I don't know. It's hard to... Am I an idiot? Am I like not keeping up with this? I'm trying to look up like to see if it's actually Slim on the other tracks. And it all probably doesn't even matter anyway, because it all just seems to be a dream, right? Like it didn't really happen. It just ends with like, M waking up again. He keeps waking up on this album, and that whole thing. And that's kind of how the album should have ended. It should have ended with him being like, oh, it was all a dream, haha, and, Slim will continue to live, and you have all fell for this, and this isn't really a, the death of Slim Shady, even though, what does it really matter, because they're all the same anyway. And that's what he goes on about. But then you got like extra tracks added on to the end of this album that I just don't really get. Like it just continues on with some more of M going on about his life and everything. There's some good lines here and there throughout all these. And this is after Guilty Conscience 2, where you got about like 5 more tracks left, and they all seem pretty superfluous. They don't really add much to the album that's already been added. The way this album ends is just so bizarre with Somebody Save Me, which is just like such a depressing end to an otherwise comical, cartoonish album. It just kind of shows just how little... It doesn't seem like there's like a lot of thought into like the flow of the album, and you don't really need it because you've already got the song Temporary, easily the best Skylar Grey collab that she and Eminem have done, because it's not just a big fucking gym hip hop radio hit kind of bullshit big oomphy yay millennial bullcrap kind of rap song, like similar to the kind of stuff that he would do with Rihanna, it's like it's just like, but it's the song that makes him the big bucks, and he has to do it at all his shows. Yay. Yeah, thankfully there's none of that like, anthemic like, fuck my ex kind of songs. Yes, queen, I'm a stay strong, Temporary is definitely more on the emotional down low kind of song. So yeah, it's pretty nice. And I could, you can keep that on the album, but like the rest of the shit, like Bad One and what else? Head Honcho and, Somebody Save Me, and especially Toby. None of these are really needed on the album. You could just, really slice this album down to like, if it was kind of more, it just seems like it's, comparing it to like a marble sculpture, it's like it needs to be chiseled away a bit more. It needs to be like smoothened out because it just looks so chunky still, even though it still looks good from afar, I guess. But if you just got the concept a bit more, clearer, and kept this album at like a bit more of a leaner time, like 50 minutes, get it about that, like it's, it's just over an hour long, it's still a bit too long. So just cut it down a bit, get it like that regular album length. And I think it could have worked better, and it could have just come like across smoother and a little punchier with like, the whole concept and everything that it needs to go for. And I guess this whole M and Slim debate that they're having on the album is because it's kind of like Slim Shady from back in the day, where he's got like the bleached hair and he's like, oh, I'm a bad boy, back when he was in his, mid to late 20s with M. coming to this time and being like, whoa, look at all these woke cunts. Oh, they're easily triggered, they say. What a bunch of pussies. Ooh, they can't handle me. Oh, they're going to cancel me, are they? Yeah, you can try. There's all these themes about cancel culture, woke culture throughout the album. It's kind of silly that M's even bringing all this up because, like, he even has this whole thing in the album, the skit where it's like, oh, he cancelled himself, oh, he's in trouble now. But, you know, none of this applies to M, you know. It's just, he's grandfathered in, you know. Like, he's such a huge, unstoppable, you know, every album is a fucking #1 hit. It's probably always going to be like that for him. And there's nothing in particular that he's saying that's like that offensive, I guess, because, you know, obviously woke people, I suppose, and woke publications out there are going to have had a shit fit over him going on about, you know, the things he comes up with. What is it, you know, transgender people and people with disabilities, midgets, saying retarded, and Christopher Reeves and who else? Lizzo and fat shaming, fat culture, fat fucks, that whole thing, which she brings up in like one verse. But it's not like he's going on about, you know, Jewish people like Kanye is. Oh, you know, and people are really shitty. I'll get into Kanye later because Kanye really got shat on. But even he is still like someone who's like, I think with his new album, he's still like, you know, #1 each time he releases it. People are like, don't care that much. Let's talk about Vultures 2 in a second. Back to this, like, yeah, it does seem like, you know, it doesn't apply to Eminem. He's too above it, unless he's like being super offensive and really bringing up things and blah, blah, blah. Like, who cares? So he just comes across as cranky. I mean, this would have meant more in the late 2010s. If he had done this around revival time, or even if this was released when Music to Be Murdered By was released in early 2020, this all would have seemed like more modern and prescient. It would have meant more. It would have been more of a shock. But I feel like nowadays it seems like there is this, with, you know, ultra woke culture, people are like, you know, mellowing out with it, I guess, in terms of just the public in general. As I say, because of, like, you know, the sales success that continues with Eminem and even Ye. Some of the points that he comes up with about woke culture seem valiant and valid, I suppose, and then some other ones just seem cringy. I mean, it really just depends on how he throws them into a rhyme, and sometimes they come across well, so that's really how it is. Sometimes they're like humorous and cleverly scribed in how he's like criticizing woke culture. I mean, it's just if you're going to be doing this sort of thing, it's one of those things where I guess I'm just listening to it thinking, okay, well, I agree with it. If you're against woke culture, like really being a sensitive bitch, but still, just because I'm agreeing with you doesn't mean this is an interesting rap song and everything. So, or interesting entertainment that you're providing. So take note, Ricky Gervais. What I think's so great about the album is that it feels like a real cultural album, like something that Eminem has kind of stopped doing, that he's brought back on this, is that back with, like, you know, Marshall Mathers LP and around that era, like, he was just going on so much about the wider culture that he existed in. I mean, he's going on about all the, you know, in mainstream Western entertainment culture, or just the society in general, going on about celebrities and, like, boy bands that he hates and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, relating it all to, like, his own place in that same culture, the same mainstream culture as well. Like, he's also a part of it. And that seems to be something he's bringing back now. In fact, more than ever. It's like I think he comments immensely on the culture, obviously, as I'm saying, because of the whole woke thing. And it's evident in just how many people and recent events that get name dropped throughout this whole album. Like, just so many, you know, most notably the whole P. Diddy situation he brings up in a pretty funny little bit there. And some of the people that he's mentioned, like, well, at least name dropping, as he compares himself to as being like a real shocking rapper, you know, being all like stocked up with, like, you know, weapons and everything. He's comparing himself to, like, mass shooters like Nicholas Cruz and Ethan Crumbley, and, you know, and Kyle Rittenhouse as well. And he's just going on about, like, all these, and then he even name drops that Rust cinematographer chick that got shot by Alec Baldwin, and even has like a little screaming woman sound effect as well. Like, some of this kind of stuff, it's actually surprising. It's a little bit jolting, and you know what? Maybe even actually slightly offensive. So good on you, Em, for all that. And it's funny. I guess when I first listened to this album, I thought it was okay. I just thought it was okay, but suddenly, like, I think the second time I listened to it, I was like, oh, actually, this is pretty good. I really don't mind. And I start, like, really getting into it. I've listened to it a decent amount now. I really wanted to get, like, my thoughts down. But I wasn't excited because, like Relapse, the singles aren't great. I listened to Houdini, and it's like, beat-wise is fine. It sounds like Eminem, but it sounds like, he's just, calling back to Without Me so much. And, at least going on a bit about the culture and what is it, Megan Thee Stallion getting a foot shot and everything, and putting that into a rhyme, a funny joke, haha. Standard enough Eminem song these days. I wasn't excited about it. I wasn't like cringing about it. It was fine, but it was pretty in the middle. And then Toby comes out and it has a decent beat, but it's still just like not really that interesting. And the chorus is pretty fucking cringy. I don't even get it, what it means. That Tobey Maguire, he got bit by a spider. But see, me, it was a goat. Right? Because, like, goat, I understand the acronym, but, like, getting bit by one, you are one? Spider-Man? Yeah, hey, you know what? I don't really care much about the guests on this album, except for Bizarre. But why not? Because, he's down with the horrorcore. But, yeah, a lot of the... let's have a look at who's on. Oh, who cares who's on it? There's no one really that. At least he's throwing on a lot of people that I don't know. There's no, there's no Kendrick. There's no. I guess there's no one like that. It seems like younger dudes, who are like up and comers, and he's giving them a shot. And I guess they seem fine, but I just don't think they gel well with like Eminem on this album has got so much. He's somewhat consistent with like everything that he wants to talk about in terms of the culture, and yet all these other guys that come on the album are talking about, all the drug culture shit that they've been doing and all the coke they've been slinging and all that kind of thing, and just being a real radical badass who's going to roll up on you with a Uzi and shoot you through your window in the ghetto and kill you and also accidentally your 3-year-old daughter, whatever kind of thing. Don't really care for that much. Because it just doesn't like really fit with the rest of the album, and I just don't care. Even though Pitchfork is going to have a big boner about it, they're going to be like, oh, Eminem's just complaining like an old boomer. Oh, but all the black people on the album are amazing. Ooh-wee. I guess you got a few people like Black Gold, whoever the fuck that is. Some people are brought in just for doing a chorus. It's good that Eminem isn't singing on this album. It's really fantastic, I'm glad he got that out of his system and he isn't doing it that much. I mean, maybe he is singing a little bit, but it's not like in an emotional way. It's just like a fun little hook for like a wacky cartoonish song that he has. It's just interesting that it's funny that he brought in like an encore old track. I think I think he recorded those lyrics back then. I don't think he's re-recorded them. I don't know, but for him to take that and bring it on the album, and then he says on the album why he got rid of it from Encore and why he brought it back, so you get that backstory to it. Yeah, I didn't really realize I guess that's the thing, like my confusion with listening to the album for the first time, because when that song came on, I'm like, why the fuck is he dissing against Christopher Reeves? It's so strange. It's so outdated. So it is a bit jarring with that kind of thing. It doesn't quite make sense again, and it could have been cleared up with the whole concept of the album, because it could have been like, hey, it's like Slim, or remember back in the day, and him making fun of Christopher Reeves and bringing it back, it's like it could have been like a throwback, back to the past kind of thing, and then it jumps back to the present. I don't know, but the song is fun, and it legit sounds like a real Encore deleted song, It sounds like it really did come from that album. And it's funny to hear, like, it does also seem like, in terms of beats and everything, it kind of fits well with the rest of the album. I guess the rest of the album doesn't want to be heaps modern sounding in terms of its beats and music, like Kamikaze did, which it did kind of successfully, really. Not a whole lot of, like, trap beat, yeah, which would be hypocritical of Eminem, and I guess. But it fits in fine. And that kind of song definitely sounds like a Eminem being goofy and mean and but not really mean. He's just playing, and like it would have been. I think it was going to be a single on Encore, and you listen to it now, and it's like, God, it could be a single now, I suppose. Guilty Conscience 2 is pretty good. I don't think it's like quite the best in terms of lines and flow and everything. It's just the best like storytelling moment of the album. It seems to be the only storytelling moment of the album, really. It's pretty dope the way Eminem and Slim face off against each other. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And how Eminem at the end like kind of comments on like his whole I don't know, some of the regrets of the beefs he's had and everything, and how Slim put him through all that, and how Slim is calling Marshall a pussy these days, and that kind of thing. Anyway, that's just about it. Like I say, it's pretty good. I just wonder if I'm gonna keep listening to it now. Maybe some songs. I feel like Antichrist is my favorite. The only problem I got with like a lot of this album, I suppose, is that there's a lot of Eminem. There's lots of wordplay. There's lots of like clever kind of stuff like that he wants to add in. He wants to like show that he's real clever with his lyrics and wordplay. Okay, good for him. But there's so many of the, I don't know what you call them, but when he adds like a little thing after a bar, where it's like a gunshot sound, some sort of sound effect, or him chuckling. It's just a lot of that where it's him like saying, get it? He's just a little too smug. He's just a little too wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And with these whole like clever, funny lines that he has, like just say the line and continue on. Stop like pointing out how funny you are, you fuck. And one last thing is that this album cover looks horrendous. When I saw it, I thought it was fake. I'm like, oh God, it's real. It's him in a body bag, and it looks like, to me, it looks like, a vagina. It looks like he's being birthed out of the bag. That seems to be, perhaps, but it doesn't seem to be totally like an explicit thing. It just kind of looks like that. I don't know. Could he have not made a joke about that on the album, just to clarify the joke on the album cover? Because it seems like it's halfway to a joke. I don't know. Anyway, good album overall. I think it's better than Kamikaze. I think it's his best album since... I like it more than Relapse, because Relapse has too many bad songs in it. Although it's close. Probably better than Encore. I keep thinking it's like back to Eminem Show. I keep thinking it's like, oh, it's his best since then. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know. You've got like the first two albums. They stand at the top. And then you've got stuff like Eminem Show, Kamikaze, maybe Relapse, this album, and maybe Encore, just because of nostalgia value. People really shit on that album, but I grew up with it, so what am I going to do? And then below that, you got like more of the crap, like Marshall Mathers LP2, Don't Care For It, Revival, obviously, and Music to Be Murdered By. Both fucking albums of that. They're at just about the bottom of the pile. Have I missed an album here? Who cares? Fuck! Alright, cool. I am delighted. I am very happy. Well done, Eminem. You came out with a good album. You didn't disappoint. Well done. You didn't go over the same shit that you've been doing for the past few albums. You took it back to your roots. Well done. Good. You made a good album. Now I'm happy. I hope you're listening, Eminem. You listen to this and you're like, oh, thank God David likes it. That's good to hear. I'll tell you what I didn't like, though. I decided to finally watch the Slim Shady Show. Remember that when Slim Shady Eminem was like really big? It was around about, I think, between around about 9/11 time, when he was like a big star. And he released the Slim Shady Show, and I believe it was a cartoon series, but it was like real flash animation, and it was released online, I believe. So, but it probably had some airings here and there on TV, maybe. I don't know. Because back then, it would take like fucking hours to download. Yeah, it'd really take a long time. I don't know. But anyway, there was also a DVD and a VHS released of it. I used to look at it. I saw it in a few stores, and I was like, oh, yeah, I won't get it. I'm fucking glad I didn't. The thing is that I don't know if you remember. Do you remember when you bought the Eminem show back when it came out, and you decided to go with the double disc? Well, the one that came with a DVD, which has got like a bunch of, I don't know, interviews and music videos and a few like really early live performances, and it also included one of the Slim Shady Show episodes, the one where they go to prison. Yeah, I remember watching that DVD a few times, and I watched that episode a bunch of times. I don't really know why. I don't remember laughing at it or thinking it was particularly funny. Maybe it scratched something in my head, in my funny bone. I don't know, man, but hey, I watched the actual thing. I watched the actual... I mean, there's like a bunch of episodes, and I watched all of them. So altogether, they only go to like 40-something minutes. As long as this album should have been. And, oh boy, I mean, it is just like that kind of humor back in the day, but maybe like the worst of it, where it's just like, ha, a gay man sucking a cucumber, that kind of joke, whoa, look at those retards over there jerking off, ha ha, oh, look, this guy's really horny and he's jerking off, and this woman gets offended and slaps him, and then he just keeps going, something like that. I don't even remember the jokes. Like, this is just along the lines of it. And it's obviously very influenced by South Park, and obviously there's the difference between South Park being its jokes coming from a real satirical place of making fun of not just suburbia, but like the wider culture, and it's all like, hypocrisies and so on. But with this, there's no intelligence at all. There's nothing coming through it. It's just, bird shit on man. Then he shoots the bird, and whatever. It's not. I guess it just like doesn't really come through at all. And I can't believe I just sat and watched it. And it's also kind of awkwardly animated and directed. There's a lot of like moments where it's just like a big silence. It's just like someone walking around. I don't know. It's just like badly directed, I suppose. I can't say I really laughed too much at it. There was just times where I was just like, oh, this is so offensive, and I guess I should be laughing, but instead I was just like, Jesus Christ, I was triggered. Oh, you triggered, you fucking sensitive snowflake. No, I just didn't find it funny. Anyway, I can barely even remember it. I mean, it's clearly influenced by South Park, because the first episode that you see on the DVD or VHS has the South Park characters in there. And they kind of talk, but they kind of don't. So it's really awkward. Like, South Park is like such a, especially, I guess, with the early episodes, but maybe still, it's like, it's just so snappy. There's no parts where it's just like characters have to walk from here to over there. So there's like 10 seconds of just footstep sounds, and that's it. This kind of shit. Like, there's always action, or at least talking going on. So it's just strange that like these South Park characters appear and then they don't talk. And you're like, what's going on? Like, I guess they did end up talking, but I was kind of thinking at first, like, is there a copyright issue where they're like, they can use their image, but they can't make the same voices, even though it's clearly not the actual voice actors. Anyway, that whole thing didn't work out. Eminem, he's so big back in the day, but releasing the show, it's just like, that didn't go too well. So that didn't work. I wonder what the critics had to say about it back in the day. It didn't become the big cultural thing, and it's something that Eminem, I guess, is pushed aside, I suppose. But there's something about Eminem. He seems actually like a pretty good voice actor. Like, I think he's genuinely got like a good, like, he does a number of voices. Like, he plays himself, Eminem, or Marshall, I guess, and then there's Slim Shady and Ken Kniff, and then I think he does some other voices, and he's done voices across albums before, and I just think, yeah, maybe he should be, lending that kind of talent to a show. Oh, maybe I'll start an animated series on Adult Swim, and I can be like, yo, Slim, come up here on my new show, man. You got such a great... You can play various characters. Yeah, no, I'll do that. Anyway, all right, since I promised it, I guess I'll talk quickly about the new Ye album with the... by the way, like, this new... with the Vultures 1 earlier this year, there's a line on there about being in the trenches like Columbine, haha. And then on this Eminem album, he made a similar line, and he also mentions $sign just before that. So is it a reference to Ye and Ty $sign Vulture's album? I don't know. It's not clear. It needs to be carved out more, made more smooth. But anyway, look, the Vultures, I don't know if I even talked about it. Vultures 1, I found to be pretty disappointing. I was like, oh, I don't really care. And maybe it's gelling with me a little bit more, but I just don't know, and I really don't care. But like, this Vultures 2, I put on, and I kind of dug it. Not entirely, like, not all the tracks, but some tracks, you know, I really fuck with. And it's just, you know, obviously the critics are just out there all going to be like, oh, we don't like Eminem anymore. Boo, they give it a thumbs down and everything. It's just, it's just so typical, because I felt like Vultures 1 sounded like what they're saying about Vultures 2, which is like, oh, it just sounds like very general, just rap, trap, crap. That's all it is. And that's all it sounded to me, was just, it's not interesting for Kanye. It doesn't sound like any kind of musical evolution, or at least him continuing with anything interesting. But I think Vultures 2 is a bit more. He's a bit more, not just going on about, you know, oh, my watches and everything. He's like getting into his whole relationships and how he feels about, you know, his old love and his new love. Across a couple of tracks that, you know, are very central and very intimate, because of, like, some of them don't even have beats. There's no percussion at all. You got stuff like Husband. I think that's a dope track, you know, where it's just got such a, like, smooth synth to it. It doesn't really have to have anything more added to it. I can imagine people saying it's like, I don't know, undercooked or whatever, but I feel it's fine. It's on the more minimalistic side, and I think it comes through well. And then as it leads into Lifestyle, and I think that's a great track as well, especially as it continues on with, like, the whole, it comes back into the Husband chorus again at the end. And 530 as well. That's like, almost sounds like it's taking it back to Kanye's earlier works. I don't know. I guess it sounds like a cross. So it sounds like Life of Pablo era, because, as I say, it's no percussion. It's just got the sample to begin with. Kanye really going on about, like, his Kim Kardashian, I suppose. And then it goes into this, like, you know, real interesting, I don't know how to say it. I don't know what, like, the instrumental, like, you know, it's a keyboard, obviously, kind of part towards the end, but it just sounds like pretty emotional and very, even kind of, it sounds intimate, and I just can't come up with this word, like creepy, not creepy, but like kind of alien, kind of mysterious. I don't have the right fucking word for this. I've been spending like 4 hours right now trying to think of it, but this is something going on. I love the ending of 530. River is dope, and I like My Soul. Dead, don't like the guest stars on it, but listening to that with some good headphones, hey, it sounds pretty good. It's got like a deep bass to it. Look, the album's not so bad, but just this whole fucking thing about Kanye, like, releasing an album, I get used to it and I know what I like and don't like, and then he just, like, does these updates, and I'm like, oh, now he fucked up a song that I liked. My Soul in particular, which, I don't know, I guess it's just like with the drums, you know, especially towards the end, like, it just continued on with the, like, you know, drumless, intimate feeling of the production behind the album, and he just fucked it up at the end. He doesn't, like, continue on with it. And I kind of dug how the album ended last time, because it was just so abrupt. It was as if this album is dying, and it does it at such a, like, good point, but now he just does, like, a little reverby thing at the end on the vocals. That's not as interesting to me. That's not as interesting. Maybe if it had come out that way before, it's just sounds like he's cleaned up the album, but, you know, having it be a little rougher in that way, I don't really mind. Having it be a little more minimalistic, I don't mind. And there's some things, I don't know, Forever Rolling seems to be a bit fucked up as well, and, you know, this, and fucking taking out the ending of Lifestyle as well, where he gets into all his, like, you know, sexy moaning towards the end of the song, you know. No, I'm fine with that, and now he's taking it out. I don't know what's going on. So that all kind of sucks, and I look at songs like 530, and I'm like, he hasn't fucked with this yet. Is he going to put a beat in now and fuck it up? Damn it. Now I got to, like, pirate the original version of the album. And what got fucked up for me was on Spotify, the album got cut so far down that it was like 33 minutes. There was no, like, it ended with Forever Rolling. And I was like, what is he doing? Why is the album still like this? And then I looked it up online and I couldn't see anyone really complaining about this, and I got wigged out. And then there seems to be 2 versions of the same album on Spotify, so I was looking at the wrong one. So the other one is like now 40-something minutes. So yeah, that whole thing, it's kind of annoying, this is something he did with all the way back with Life of Pablo, which was an album that I pirated and didn't listen to on Spotify or anything. I just had, so I've got a very clear kind of idea of what that album sounds like. So when I listen to it on Spotify, sometimes I get irked and weirded out when I hear like a change, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't sound right. Yeah, it's annoying. It's annoying when you have those kinds of preferences, It's like when a film gets made and it's like, oh, the director's cut is out, and you're like, oh, I don't like the new things in it, and you can't watch the original anymore. But, that's why we have archive.org. And this episode is sponsored by archive.org, so go there to watch anything you ever want. We're also sponsored by the Pirate Bay. Anyway, whatever, that's been the wrap. That's been the wrap. That's a wrap on the wrap. Hooray. It's been episode 97 of the David Morgan Brown Experience. All right. Wiggity, wiggity what? Wigger.